Okay, welcome back to lesson number 3. We're in section 1-3, and what I need you to do first of all is I need you to read pages 16, 17, 18, and the beginning of number 19. Again, pay careful attention to all these boxes that either say key concept or example. The examples are going to look very much like your work. They're going to be stated in almost exactly the same way. So here's how you will do your work. This is what your work should look like. Now I've gone through this section and I've made my notes. Here are my notes. I'm going to set them up here and I'm going to just leave them there for a moment. You need to pause this video and copy this down unless you want to make your own out of the book. I took each of the properties that were introduced in the key concepts. I wrote down its name, the algebraic or symbolic form, and what that will look like when we actually do our work. Symbolic form with actual numbers. Symbolic form with actual numbers. Your work is going to be evaluating expressions, which you did in the last 2 sections. But each time you follow through with a step, you must note which identity or which property that you used. There's one here that's called substitution. It's the one that you will be using most. We use substitution whenever we complete a math process. Let's look at the example. In example number 1, here's the original expression, and they wrote it out again right here. And the very first thing that they did is they carried through with this step right here. Remember, order of operations, do parentheses first. So they did 4 minus 3. And they wrote that as 1. They did a math process, an operation, and they wrote the answer to that operation down. That's called substitution. For this particular example, substitution was used 1, 2, 3 times. Substitution is always going to be the step that you do when you're completing a math operation. Adding something, subtracting something, multiplying something, or dividing something. When you carry out those processes and write the answer down, that's called substitution. The exception is going to be when the operation itself matches one of these properties or identities that we talk about. For example, 7 times 1. Well, that happens to be the multiplicative identity. Anytime you multiply something by 1, you get back exactly what you started with. 14 times 1 equals 14. So in that case, a math process was being done, but it matched one of the properties other than substitution. Okay, read it, make your notes, and then your work, it's really not going to be very many exercises today because this is a little toilsome, I know, and I don't want to overburden you with it. That will not be the exception always. But today it will be. All right, so let's look at some of the work. On page 19. Here I have number 1. It says evaluate each expression, name the property used in each step. So I copied down the exercise, which you should always do. And always use pencil. When we are evaluating these, we use our order of operations, or PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. Now is a good time to point out that when you get down to multiplying and dividing, these are of equal weight, equal importance. So if in an expression you have multiplying and dividing, it does not matter which one you do first. If you work left to right and divide comes first, then do the division first. If you're working left to right and the multiplication comes first, then do the multiplication first. These two are of equal importance, as well as these two right here. Add and subtract. If all you have in the entire expression is add and subtract, it doesn't matter which one you do first. If you work from left to right, which you should, and the subtraction comes first, then subtract first. If you're working left to right and addition comes first, then do the addition first. These two are of equal importance. These two are of equal importance. So here we go. Here's our expression, and I'm seeing parentheses, divide, multiplication, and more multiplication. Order of operations says do the parentheses first, so that's where we're going to start. There is math to do on the inside of the parentheses. That's what it means when it says do parentheses first. So we're going to do this. 1 divided by 5. This is kind of a tricky one because I already see what they're trying to get at here. 1 divided by 5 is 0.2, but that's not the direction they want us to go. What we're going to do is we're going to change 1 divided by 5 to 1 over 5. I changed the form of this, and I'm going to use substitution. No, I didn't complete the math process here. I wrote it in a different form. That can be called substitution as well. And here's what I end up with. 1 over 5 times 5 times 14. Yes, there's still parentheses here, but there is no math to do on the inside here. And so we go to our next step. This matches one of the properties that were introduced to us. It's called multiplicative inverses. When you're multiplying reciprocals, the answer is 1. I did this math process. If it didn't equal 1, I would have written substitution here for the answer that I got when I did that. But it equaled 1, so that meant it fit this property, multiplicative inverses. So I completed that part, and now I still have the times 14. 1 times 14. Well, this fits another of the special properties, multiplicative identity. Any number times 1 equals that number. So 14 times 1 equals 14. I completed that step. I wrote my answer down. Substitution. Substitution is used when you complete an operation. Add, subtract, multiply, or divide. I did not have to include the word substitution on this one because it fit the multiplicative identity. I know I've said a lot. This is just going to come with practice. We won't be writing our steps out like this all year long, but in many of the examples in the book that we look at, off to the side is going to be these terms and these operations, just as it is right here. And we need to be familiar with what they mean and how to use them as well. All right, moving on. Number 3. Here we go. I wrote the exercise down. We've got multiplication here, parentheses, subtraction, addition, multiplication, parentheses, addition. Order of operations says to do the parentheses first. I don't need a separate line for this set of parentheses and another line for this one. I can do them both at the same time, and that's what I did. I'm going to do the math inside this parenthesis and the math inside this set of parentheses, and I'm going to write the answer down. That's called substitution. In the place of this operation is the number 9. In the place of this operation is the number 10. Substitution. Now I've got multiply, add, multiply. Multiplication comes before addition, so I must do the multiplication first. I don't need a separate line for this multiplication and a separate line for this multiplication. I can do them both at the same time. I'm going to replace 5 times 9 with its answer, and I'm going to replace 6 times 10 with its answer, carrying out mathematical operations. So substitution will be the property that I'm using. 5 times 9 is 45. 6 times 10 is 60. I substituted those values in for those math processes. Here's the result. Now we've worked it down to where we just have one operation to go, which is addition. 45 plus 60. I'm going to carry through with this math process. I'm going to write the answer down. That is substitution as well. The answer is 105. So in this particular exercise, substitution was used 3 times. It is the most common property that we will use if we have to write them out as we go from step to step like we are doing in this exercise. Let's look at one more. This one is all addition. Addition doesn't rely on you working left to right, but because that's the way that we read, that's the way that we want to work. These are of equal strength here, equal importance. So I can either add these two together first, or I can add these two together first, or I can add the first one to the last one first. It doesn't matter. We'll just start with the first two. 23 plus 42. That's an operation. It's going to be replaced with its result. Substitution is the reason that we're giving for this. 23 plus 42 equals 65. Now we're left with just one simple operation, addition. We're going to carry through with that operation and write the result. So the reason for that is substitution as well. 65 plus 37 equals 102. And that's it. Okay, this is the way that your work should look. You don't have to draw arrows like I did. I did that so you could see what I was doing and where this applied. You don't have to draw the arrows. What you do need to do, though, is you need to show every step just as I did, and you need to write out the properties that you use to follow through with that step. So your assignment, it's not going to be very many exercises, but you need to do them completely just as I did. You will do number 2, number 4, and number 4, I know it's a word problem, but here's what you're going to use. Here's your expression, evaluate it, just as you did when it looked like that. 2, 4, 6, and 8. 2 through 8, the evens, page 19. There you go.